I'm endlessly intrigued at games that take on a roguelike element into their game when you don't necessarily expect it to be there, especially when you're talking around permadeath. Enter Tip Top Don't Fall. This is a rock climbing game, quite similar to QWOP, actually, if you've ever played those games, and you'll be trying to climb up various different mountain faces. But if you fall, there's permadeath and you die, and your progress is reset as you go through increasingly more challenging mountains. You go all the way back to your baby training days again, and the mountains are all randomly regenerated for different faces for you to climb each time. Now, this game is really quite unique and interesting, and I bought it when it came out on PC last year, but I was privileged enough to get early access to a console version, and this is the PS4 version that's coming out this week on your screens now. The game, and I'll explain it in console controller format, your left hand and your right hand are busy going up different handholds as you move around the mountain, and you cling on to stuff by pressing and holding the L1 and R1 buttons on your controller. You then have the corresponding analog sticks that can then rotate your arms around, and what you'll be finding is you'll be trying to stretch out to the next handhold, grab onto it, then let go of the next one and kind of swing yourself around. You need to really think about like 3 or 4 steps ahead though, because quite often, particularly from the second half of the game onwards, the handholds get more and more sparse and disparate from each other. So sometimes you can only reach it if you kind of get to something cack-handed. So you would ordinarily like shuffle right hand to left hand and not cross the hands over. But that becomes quite an integral thing, is to kind of reverse engineer yourself so that your arms are crossed, so that then moves you into the centre of an area of 3 handholds, but your right hand is on it, not the left, because it increases the arm span that you've got, a bit like wings on a bat, or a bird rather, that you can then spread out and get to somewhere else and then cling on and swing over. As all of this is going on, you also have the ability to jump. And what you do with this is you have to have both hands held somewhere nicely and firmly, and you need to have enough stamina to do this. But you press and hold X and then aim where you're going to throw yourself, and a little arrow will pop out, and it will turn the handhold that you're going to land onto purple when you reach the right area for it. And then you'll press and let go of the X, and then you'll fling up, and you'll need to quickly grab on again. All of these moves cost stamina, and stamina is the biggest currency in Tip Top Don't Fall. And it's forever reducing, not just in terms of like how much stamina you've got left, but your total as well. And this is both a blessing because it's really makes the game challenging, but it's also a curse because you're forever into decreasing circles of survivability, and it's quite frustrating sometimes to play with. So as you move around, you'll see that your handholds kind of have an amber or a red or like a light ambery type colour to it. And this basically shows how strong and less stressful the grip is. And so what you'll be doing is trying to stay on the amber ones as much as possible and keep both hands on the rocks, because that decreases the stamina, like going up red in the stamina meter that's next to each hand. But at some point, you'll get to the point where you can't move on. And what you'll need to do is one of 2 things. One is to reach around and chalk up your hands. And the second one is to attach yourself to a hook, which is like a safety net, so that if you do fall off, you will restart at the bottom of the mountain and not die, because it's a safety harness hook. The problem with all of these is that chalking and putting on hooks decreases the total overall stamina that you have left. And so you need to do it sparingly and at the point of need where you're about to fall off. So you're really having to run close to the wire. Then you're like, quick, chalk. Do that. And it takes a few seconds to do it. So again, you have to kind of do it around the 75% mark of having full stamina. But you also need to do it at the point before you're going to do like a big leap and a jump, because those take up so much stamina that quite often, if you've been a bit too careful up front and you've chalked up your hands too many times, or you've used 1 or 2 safety hooks, your total stamina doesn't actually give you enough stamina to make a jump. And more often than not, it wasn't me falling off a mountain and dying that was a problem. It was that I'd been too careful and I'd ran out of stamina. But then if I didn't chalk up my hands often enough because I was going slower and having to wait for things to kind of align, particularly on a level set where there was clouds going by and I couldn't visually see what I was doing, frustratingly. You would end up in just like unwinnable situations. And I was like, So clearly I needed to go faster, but I also needed to be more reckless. When you die, everything gets wiped and your progress gets wiped and you start back at the beginning at baby levels as you go through the game. And that's fine, but what it does do is it unlocks a couple of new modes for you. So firstly, you've got practice mode that allows you to just practice on different types of mountains because each mountain range has its own unique settings. There's a frosty one where all the handholds fall away after a couple of seconds. There's one that's got like quicksand that goes down. That means that you slide down like tiny avalanche things as you're trying to climb up them again, so you've got to be quick around it. All different like variants, which is quite cool. But the other thing is that you can then turn off permadeath mode, and you can also reset it so that if you die, you then start at the last safety hook that you came to rather than just at the bottom of the mountain. Now I found turning permadeath on increased my happiness with this game no end, because I felt like some of the deaths and some of the things that are thrown at you are slightly unfair, because particularly ones where you've got the visual clouds going across and you can't see where your next foothold is, you quite often lose half a stamina bar trying to work out where you're supposed to go next, and I found that was particularly unfair. There's also, and I hate to say it, some bugs in this game, and apparently they're going to be patched, hopefully before release, but if not shortly after. But what's slightly annoying around this is that they're exactly the same bugs that were on the PC version when that launched last year and I bought it. So it feels like lessons may not have been learnt through the development cycle. The first thing is that if you grab onto safety hooks with both hands, the game can't take it and it soft locks. The second one is that if you are falling and you cling onto something halfway down and still let go and the game decides you die, it knows that you've clung onto it, but it also knows that you've died. And then so it black screens and nothing happens there either. So there are a few times where I did have to close the game, come back out, go back in again. Sometimes that also wiped my progress mid-campaign as well, which was a bit frustrating. So yeah, all of those things kind of led me to turn permadeath mode off, and then I enjoyed the game much more. Tip Top, Don't Fall is genuinely unique. I do have fun with it. I do think it's a niche game, particularly if you enjoy those QWOP games though. I think they'll be right up your street. And yeah, it's out now on consoles from the 27th of September. Written review will be over on highplanegames.com. Any comments or questions, leave them down below. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/higherplane-network. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.